The script, according to the plot, was simple. Slip a drug into the campus queen's drink, wait for the hero to burst in, and get my ribs broken for my trouble. But when I pushed open the door to the VIP suite at the Onyx Lounge, the woman who was supposed to be there was gone. In her place, her brother, Julian Vance, was lounging on a velvet couch. He held the very gimlet I'd had sent up, the one with the extra ingredient, swirling it with an air of utter indifference. The sound of the door latching caught his attention. His eyes, the color of cold steel, locked onto mine. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, he tilted his head back and drained the glass. He asked with a low laugh if I wasn't planning on running. That was all the prompting I needed. I spun on my heel, but my nerves were shot. My foot caught the edge of a low marble coffee table, sending me sprawling onto the plush carpet right before the door. A paralyzing dread washed over me as I heard the crisp, unhurried sound of his Italian leather shoes approaching. My hands trembled as I pushed myself up. Just as my fingers brushed against the cold brass of the doorknob, a wall of warmth pressed against my back. An arm, corded with muscle, snaked around my waist, pulling me flush against him. He was strong, pinning me to the door with a gentle but absolute force that made struggling pointless. The air grew thick and silent. I could feel his gaze on the back of my neck, the unnerving focus of a predator observing its cornered prey. A shiver traced its way down my spine. My voice was a mere tremor when I asked what was wrong, reminding him that it was me, Leo. Julian's breath was hot against my skin, his lips brushing the sensitive curve of my neck in a barely there caress that was followed by a soft, contented sigh. When our fingers interlaced, my own were still clenched desperately around the doorknob, a final, futile hope. I twisted it, pulling with all my might, but the door remained stubbornly shut. He chuckled, the sound a rich baritone laced with the gin from the cocktail, sending a strange current through me. He whispered into my ear, his voice a low, intimate murmur, asking me what I thought was wrong, calling me coy. I, a disposable side character, had meant to drug the heroine and instead had been taken by her brother. The next morning, my entire body ached as if it had been dismantled and poorly reassembled. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking as I unlocked it and opened my messages. The last one sent was to J. Vance, a new contact. Come to the Elysian, room 2061.
Urgent.
Seeing his name, I felt my body turn to stone. In my first attempt at villainy, I had been so flustered that I texted the wrong person. My expression contorted as I sank into the marble bathtub. After a week of hiding out in my own apartment, I dutifully went to the meeting Julian had arranged. There was no other choice. I was just a trust fund kid with a reputation for being a degenerate. A footnote in this story whose only purpose was to facilitate the main couple's heroic rescue scene. Julian Vance, on the other hand, was the current head of Vance Enterprises. If he truly wanted to deal with someone who tried to drug his sister, I wouldn't even know how I died. The thought sent a cold shiver through me. A moment later, a jacket smelling faintly of lemon and cedar was draped over my shoulders. Before I could process it, Julian's own silk tie was being used to blindfold me. He told me to be good and follow him. In the darkness, he guided me by the shoulder, leading me upstairs. When the light returned, I blinked, and the blood drained from my face. Julian's voice was a soft caress as he wondered why I wasn't going in. The hand that had been on my shoulder slid down to the small of my back, giving it a suggestive squeeze. The number on the door was 2061. The memories of that night were a chaotic, vivid blur. Sitting on that same couch, a phantom heat began to build in my body. Julian remained silent, and I could only watch his impassive face, grateful he couldn't hear the frantic drumming of my heart. He seemed calm, giving no indication of what he knew. I told myself the text had come from a burner phone. I, a known libertine and a fixture in Chicago's nightlife, could easily claim I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. As long as I denied everything, I was a victim, too, the one who'd been taken against his will. What could Julian Vance do, even if he was furious about sleeping with a man? My thoughts were interrupted by a knock. Julian murmured an affirmation, and a staff member entered with a gimlet on a tray, placing it respectfully on the table. The liquid was clear, but I could see the fine powder still dissolving within. I shot to my feet, announcing that I suddenly remembered something important. I had barely moved when Julian's hand clamped down on my shoulder, pulling me back into his arms. He rested his chin on my shoulder and let out a low laugh, asking what I was running from. My voice quivered, cracking with a hint of a sob as I stammered about the drink. He told me calmly that the drink was for me. As he spoke, one hand toyed with the glass while the other gripped my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. The moment our eyes met, my resolve crumbled. He knew. He absolutely knew. Seeing my silence, Julian offered a semblance of a helpless smile, but the glass in his hand crept ever closer to my lips. If he forced that down my throat, I wouldn't be leaving this room on my own 2 feet. Desperation washed over me, and any notion of masculine pride vanished. A stinging sensation filled my nose, and my eyes welled with tears that clung to my lashes as I looked at him pleadingly. A muscle in Julian's throat moved. A flicker of light danced in his dark eyes. His long, clean fingers came up to stroke my lips, tracing their seam without a word. I parted my lips on instinct, catching his finger between them and licking it in a desperate, fawning gesture. I begged him to let me go. His finger probed gently inside my mouth before he withdrew it. He rubbed the moisture between his thumb and forefinger, the corner of his eye crinkling in what looked like amusement. He asked softly why I was crying, remarking that for someone so timid, I was awfully bold to be drugging people. He then demanded to know why I had done it. His features were handsome and refined, his voice a gentle, coaxing hum that belied the earlier pressure. But then he sighed, swirling the contents of the glass, and added with a placid smile that if I didn't tell him, he would have to make time to help me remember. The cold rim of the glass touched my bottom lip. Panicked, I threw caution to the wind, burying my face in his chest and confessing in a trembling voice that I liked him. Julian was known for being fiercely protective and vindictive. If he found out that drink was originally for his sister, Ava, he'd force 10 times the dose on me and have me thrown to a pack of wolves. Since the drug was already in his system and I was going to be punished regardless, claiming it was for him was the only path that might lead to a dignified end. He murmured an "oh," and his gentle stroking paused. Then he seized my wrist, pinning it above my head. His gaze was so still it was terrifying. He seemed to be considering my words before he asked if it was true, if Coy really liked him. I forced myself to agree, adding that I was afraid he wouldn't accept me, so I thought I could have him for one night first. I apologized for my despicable methods, squeezing out a few tears for effect. Julian released me. "I see," he said, his voice laced with a satisfied tone. He set the glass down with a lazy, casual air. His fingers gently wiped the tears from the corner of my eye as he watched me. His gaze so intense it made my face burn and my heart race. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a seductive, conspiratorial whisper as he told me he hadn't planned for things to move so quickly. He bit my earlobe gently, his tone deepening with a hint of something more, me not to let him find out I was lying. I was too overwhelmed to think, nodding frantically. With that, he scooped me into his arms and carried me toward the VIP bedroom, his steps light and purposeful. My life was now a complicated mess. I was alive, but I had acquired a boyfriend. A month passed, and I'd abandoned my initial resistance, resigning myself to the situation. Julian finished knotting his tie and leaned over to kiss my eyelids, telling me he was heading to the office and that I should get up for breakfast soon. He then asked if I would wear the cat ears and collar he'd bought for him that night. I flushed and turned away, too embarrassed to answer. He wasn't offended, continuing to whisper in my ear. He wondered if I didn't like them, offering to buy everything in his online shopping cart so I could pick whichever toys I preferred. I shot upright, covering my backside and staring at him in horror. He looked completely serious. I found my voice and pleaded softly that I still hadn't recovered. His voice was thick with laughter as he asked what I had just called him. To save myself, I forced out the mortifying words he wanted to hear. The color of Julian's eyes deepened, and a muscle in his jaw ticked. He buried his face in my shoulder, his breath a wave of palpable desire as he murmured that he didn't want to go to the office anymore. I turned my face away, my cheeks burning. I wanted the composed, aristocratic man I first met back. I remembered that first time clearly. It was a gray, overcast day, heavy with impending rain. It was my first assignment, and the system had granted me a 3-month acclimation period. Dressed in black, I had slipped unnoticed into the crowd at the funeral for Julian's father. My gaze cut through the mourners and landed precisely on Julian, who stood holding a large black umbrella. He wasn't in a suit, but a charcoal blue shirt and a black trench coat. He stood silently in the drizzle, sheltering his sister, Ava. The rain slanted, dampening his shoulder, but it didn't make him look disheveled. Instead, it enhanced his aura of quiet dignity and handsome composure. Ava, overcome with grief, finally collapsed into his arms, sobbing. He held the young woman with one arm, letting her tears soak his chest, his expression unchanging. The rain fell from the spokes of the umbrella, creating a curtain of water that seemed to gently separate the grieving siblings from the world. A fragile, beautiful butterfly had found shelter on the monument. As I left, I discreetly slipped a linen handkerchief into his coat pocket, hoping he'd have a chance to wipe the rain from his face. I thought that would be our only interaction. A few days later, I found him again amidst the chaos of a bar fight, surrounded by the glint of shattered glass. Jax, my blue-haired friend, had spotted me and shoved a drink into my hand, telling me not to get too drunk as they were heading to an after-party. He was draped over a girl, tossing peanuts into his mouth between kisses. Knowing this group, I suspected the after-party wasn't going to be anything reputable. I gently extricated myself from the arm of a girl next to me, offering her a polite smile. She gave me a once-over, rolled her eyes, and muttered something about it being a shame that such a handsome guy was gay. Before I could correct her, Jax shot to his feet, his knuckles white. He was staring at something across the room, his expression a mix of excitement and malice. He growled about finally catching the guy who stole the girl he was after. I followed his gaze and easily spotted Julian. Even in the loud, disorienting club, his presence was magnetic. He wore a black shirt with the top 2 buttons undone, revealing a pale expanse of skin. He was leaning back on a sofa with his eyes closed, as if resting. Jax, brandishing a beer bottle, was already stalking toward him with his crew. The liquor in my mouth went down the wrong way. I slammed my glass down and pushed through the crowd. The man's father had just died. Jax picking a fight now was like volunteering to be a punching bag. Jax swung the bottle, his curse dying in his throat as I intercepted the blow. The impact sent a painful vibration up my arm. I wrenched the bottle from his grasp, hid it behind my back, and turned to apologize to the man who was now sitting up. I explained that it was a misunderstanding between brothers and asked if he was hurt. Julian's brow furrowed in annoyance as he shook his head. I breathed a sigh of relief and started to pull Jax away when a white object flew through the air. The sound of a glass shattering was shockingly loud even in the noisy bar. Julian's expression hardened. He slowly wiped a trickle of blood from his forehead and then, suddenly, he smiled. It was a feral expression that transformed his usually calm eyes. A voice behind me shouted in outrage about him stealing his friend's girl. I watched, frozen, as Julian methodically removed his watch, picked up a heavy glass ashtray, and rose to his feet. He stepped past me. A solid thud was followed by the wet sounds of fists meeting flesh and a man's pained grunts. When security finally arrived, Julian had already beaten the man unconscious. He calmly wiped the blood from his hands onto the man's shirt, and the look he gave me when he stood up was utterly detached, as if looking at trash. I took an involuntary step back, then hesitated before pulling out my handkerchief and offering it to him, telling him he still had blood on his face. As expected, he didn't take it, his brow crinkling in distaste. Then his gaze fell on something and he paused. Just as I was putting the handkerchief away, he reached out and took it from me. He ran his thumb over the fabric, his expression unreadable, before looking up at me with a faint, cool smile and thanking me. Later, during the mediation, the other guy's father rushed in, bowing and scraping, forcing his son to offer Julian a drink. He insisted it was all a misunderstanding, offering up a piece of prime real estate in the West Loop as a token of his apology. Julian, legs crossed, smiled graciously, saying that if it was a misunderstanding, he should just take his son home and teach him some manners. Then his eyes fell on me. He said, in a casual tone, that he was feeling a bit dizzy and wondered if I would be so kind as to take him to the hospital. Everyone in the room stared at me, especially Jax, whose glare was hot enough to burn a hole through me. Julian looked so handsome and genuinely weak, leaning back against the sofa, that I could only nod and move to help him up. His arm draped naturally around my neck, and he murmured his thanks as he leaned his considerable weight against me. It felt less like I was supporting him and more like he was effortlessly drawing me into his personal space. His scent was all crisp lemon. At the hospital, Julian handed me a bottle of water, his expression apologetic as he thanked me for the trouble and asked if my girlfriend would be worried. I waved it off, telling him it was no problem, and that no, she wouldn't be. As I twisted the cap, I had the strange feeling that his eyes lingered on my lips for a second too long. He smoothly recovered, his voice calm as he offered to have his assistant pick out a cosmetics set for her tomorrow as a thank you. I stood up quickly, insisting it wasn't necessary because I didn't have a girlfriend. Julian's eyebrows rose in what seemed like surprise, and then he smiled. He remarked that it was cold out and insisted his assistant drive me home. As he spoke, he shrugged off his black overcoat and draped it over my shoulders. The warmth from his body and his lemon scent enveloped me. Since I hadn't driven, I accepted the ride. As I was fastening my seatbelt, I noticed Julian had followed me out. He stood by the car window, an unlit cigarette between his lips, watching me. When our eyes met, his expression softened into a gentle smile, and he suggested we exchange contact information. And just like that, I, an accomplice to his assailant, had Julian Vance's number. We didn't have any business together, so we rarely contacted each other after that. Once, though, I happened to be nearby when he was leaving a function, clearly intoxicated. Thinking of him as a friend of sorts, I bought him something for the hangover from a convenience store and drove him home. As I helped him into the car, I saw how unwell he looked and took the liberty of loosening his tie, remarking that he couldn't be so honest all the time and that there were tricks to drinking like cutting it with water. Julian lazily opened his eyes. He watched me for a long moment, his gaze surprisingly intense, before he slowly replied, asking if I was very experienced. His voice, husky from the alcohol, was dangerously magnetic. I gathered my wits and shared some of my old tricks for dealing with clients. He gave a small, faint smile and leaned his head against my neck. He was so still for so long that a prickling sensation started behind my ear. Then he whispered that I was very clever. He pulled back slightly, resting his head against the headrest, a weary look on his face, and added that some drinks were impossible to avoid. From Jax and his circle, I knew that since his father's death, various branches of the Vance family were circling, eager to carve up the empire. Dozens of eyes were watching Julian, waiting for a single misstep to drag him down. Jax would practically howl with laughter when discussing the internal politics, already picturing Julian's downfall. It was clear Julian was under immense pressure. For some reason, the image of him standing silently in the rain at the funeral returned to my mind. I told him, my voice growing firmer, that if he ever needed me for anything, he could call on me, even if it was just to take a drink for him. When his beautiful eyes turned to me, I felt a strange nervousness. I added that even if I wasn't much use, it was better to have someone by his side. Julian seemed taken aback. He said nothing for a long moment. Just as I was about to break the awkward silence, he spoke, his voice raspy. He asked if I was saying I would be by his side, available whenever he called. I nodded, since my days were mostly spent aimlessly amusing myself anyway. He looked at me, a barely perceptible curve to his lips, and said that, in that case, he did have an opening by his side. I sat up straighter, asking what it was. He told me I wouldn't have to block drinks for him, but that I could only stop when he told me to. He arched an eyebrow, his eyes filled with a gentle, smiling light, and asked if I could accept that. Dazzled by his smile, I found myself nodding. I assumed that, with Julian's capabilities, he would stabilize the company long before I had to return to my world. Strangely, though, he never told me what he needed me to do. Instead, he began inviting me out to play golf or go horseback riding. He was incredibly patient. Even when my fear of the horse had me clinging to his neck, he would just laugh, lift me off the saddle, and tease me for being so timid before suggesting we ride together on his horse. Everything was heading in a good direction, until that fateful drink turned him into my reluctant boyfriend. I sighed at the thought. A sudden, cold, electronic voice echoed in my mind. Warning. Storyline deviation detected. Mission parameters updated. Initiate pursuit of Ava Vance within the designated timeframe to increase male lead's sense of crisis. The voice shattered my reminiscence. In the original plot, Ava had a crush on her brother's friend, Carter, and pursued him relentlessly after high school. Carter repeatedly rejected her, claiming he saw her as a sister, until the incident where I nearly assaulted her. That was his wake-up call, the moment he realized he loved her, kicking off their romance. But because I failed to drug Ava at the right time, Carter's epiphany never happened, and now their progress was stalled. And so, I was being promoted from disposable villain to official supporting male character. Wait, if I had to pursue Ava, what about Julian? The system remained silent. Julian would kill me if he found out I was two-timing him. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the frantic thumping in my chest. The mission was to pursue the sister, starting tomorrow, until the male lead confessed his feelings. That meant breaking up with Julian today should be fine, right? I quickly grabbed my phone, opening our message thread. Seeing the contact name my man made me pause, but the thought of the $200,000 completion bonus in my real life snapped me back to reality. Julian, I don't think we're a good fit. Let's just end it here. Was that too blunt? As I was reconsidering, my phone rang. It was Julian. I jumped, and the phone slipped from my grasp, falling into the gap between the bed and the wall. By the time I fished it out, the call had disconnected. And there, on the screen, was my sent breakup message. Julian hadn't responded. He usually got home around 8. I glanced at the clock. I had 10 minutes. I threw my things into a bag and took a cab back to my own apartment. It wasn't that I was afraid he'd try to win me back. I couldn't even picture such a scene. I was just worried that if I stayed around, he might reflect on everything and realize he'd been deceived. Would I be able to walk away in one piece then? Unlikely. I knew what he kept in his online shopping carts. All sorts of handcuffs and chains. So, even after the breakup, it was best for this ex-boyfriend to disappear as if he'd died. And my subsequent pursuit of Ava had to be kept from him at all costs. But I couldn't do it quietly either. How was I supposed to create a sense of crisis for Carter if there were no ripples? And Carter was Julian's best friend. How was I supposed to manage this balancing act? Lying on my sofa, I chewed on a grape, completely stumped. I decided to cross that bridge when I came to it. For now, I just needed to get in front of Ava and make an impression. Julian was handsome, athletic, and had countless admirers. He probably never even took me seriously. The fact that he hadn't bothered to send even a single word reply all afternoon seemed to confirm it. My mind made up, I started searching online for tips on how to pursue a girl, specifically how to do it in a way that was both grand and subtly tasteful. Hours of searching yielded nothing useful, so I spent the night binge-reading 2 angsty romance novels and had an epiphany. The next day, I stood at the entrance of Ava's university with a bouquet of fresh white roses. I smiled and asked a passing student if she would let me pursue her. Ava, who had been rushing with a stack of books, stopped and looked up. She seemed momentarily confused, stating that she didn't know me. I smiled and handed her the flowers, replying that now she did. I then leaned in and whispered for her to help me out, explaining that I'd liked someone at her school for a long time and wanted to test the waters. In a quiet bar, I cradled a massive cocktail glass, mumbling about how much I liked this person and how many times I had confessed. Ava, already a little drunk, propped her chin on her hand and asked what happened next. I looked up, my expression full of melancholic heartbreak, and told her that she had said she always saw me as a brother. Ava froze, then silently downed her entire drink. She slapped my shoulder and declared me her new friend, insisting I tell her everything. 10 minutes later, she was the one clinging to my arm, sobbing about how Carter only saw her as a sister and what a jerk he was. I handed her a tissue, suggesting that in that case, maybe we should just get together. She shook her head, slumping onto the table, and mumbled that while I was handsome, she only liked Carter. I gently took her drink away, explaining that it wouldn't be for real. I told her to take the flowers home and see how her dear Carter would react. She looked at me, a thoughtful expression on her face. I smiled slightly, pointing out that she had nothing to lose by trying. After putting her in a taxi and taking a picture of the license plate, I told her to call me when she got home. The driver nodded, and I told him to take care of her. The call came late that night. Ava's voice was electric with excitement, confirming that Carter had definitely cared. She said his expression hadn't changed much, but he kept asking who sent the flowers. After a few seconds of silence, She confessed in a more cautious tone that she had given him my name. She said he was worried she was being scammed and wanted to meet me the next night. She asked if that was okay. Of course it was okay. For my $200,000 bonus, anything was okay. To give Carter the maximum sense of crisis, I made a special effort with my appearance. In the mirror, a young man in a soft cornflower blue sweater and light-washed jeans looked back. His hair was dark and soft, and the neckline of the sweater revealed a long, pale neck. He looked fresh-faced and handsome, holding a bouquet of fragrant white jasmine. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door to the private room. Ava's eyes lit up when she saw me, and she greeted me with a delighted exclamation about how handsome I looked. I felt a little embarrassed, offering a small smile as I placed the flowers in her arms. My gaze shifted to the other man in the room. He was every bit the male lead of a novel, with charming eyes, a strong jaw, and a handsome, well-defined face. He wore a long, dark brown overcoat that gave him an air of dashing confidence. He was stunning, in a completely different way from Julian. When our eyes met, he seemed surprised for a moment but recovered quickly, smiling and inviting me to sit. He introduced himself as Carter and said he assumed Ava had told me about him. I nodded, sitting down next to Ava and returning a polite smile, introducing myself as her boyfriend. Ava immediately linked her arm with mine, her voice syrupy sweet as she told Carter she hadn't been lying about how great her boyfriend was. Carter's gaze on me seemed to hold a deeper meaning as he confirmed my name was Leo. I nodded, affecting a shy expression, and launched into my devoted supporting character speech. I confessed that I had been in love with Ava for a long time and had finally worked up the courage to tell her, and to my surprise, she had agreed. Ava rested her head on my shoulder, her voice tinged with emotion as she said she had been too fixated on one thing before and hadn't noticed the people around her, but that my appearance had shown her other possibilities in life. At this, the smile on Carter's face faded slightly. He glanced at Ava's hand on my arm and let out a short, unreadable laugh. Ava pressed on, turning to look at me with deep affection and saying that since I had met Carter, it was time for me to meet her actual brother. I stiffened, a wave of guilt washing over me. I mumbled something about doing it later. Suddenly, the doorknob turned. A familiar voice came from behind me, asking coolly why I didn't want to meet him. My expression froze. Ava was the first to react, letting go of me and rushing to the newcomer with a cry of surprise, asking why he wasn't in London. The man let out a soft laugh, saying he'd heard she had a boyfriend. He added that his little kitten had run off, and he was afraid he wouldn't be able to catch it unless he came back himself. Julian shrugged off his suit jacket, tossing it casually onto a screen divider, and pulled out a chair directly across from me. He looked at me with the detached air of a complete stranger, then raised an eyebrow at Ava, prompting her for an introduction. Seeing my silence, Ava repeated the story she'd told Carter. Julian stirred the soup in his bowl, his tone flat as he asked if I had pursued her. The way he focused on that detail sent a chill down my spine. The calmer he was, the more terrified I felt. Ava tried to diffuse the tension, asking with a laugh when he had gotten a cat, since he was allergic to them. Julian ignored her, his voice level as he asked how long we had been dating. Ava glanced at me, hesitating before saying 5 or 6 days. Julian stopped stirring his soup and finally looked up at me, the spoon clattering loudly against the porcelain bowl. 5 or 6 days. 5 or 6 days ago, I was still living in Julian's penthouse, curled up on the sofa with him, discussing what color rug to buy for the living room. The moment Julian's eyes met mine, I immediately looked down. Carter, seemingly unable to bear the tension, sighed and stood up, asking Ava to step outside with him for a moment. Ava's uncertain gaze darted between me and Julian. I tried to appear nonchalant, telling her it was fine and that I would talk to her brother. The smile I managed felt more like a grimace. The moment the door closed, I quickly moved to sit beside Julian, taking the bowl of soup from in front of him with an attentive air. I told him it had ginger in it and that I would pick it out for him. Julian toyed with a lighter, his thoughts unreadable. After a moment, he leaned back languidly, his arm coming to rest on the back of my chair. His long fingers tapped an idle rhythm as he finally spoke, his voice low. He asked if I was doing this as his boyfriend, or, he paused, the upward curve of his lips slowly disappearing, his gaze turning unervingly cold, as his thoughtful brother-in-law. Though Julian's tone was calm, I sensed a storm brewing. The feeling intensified when he began to expressionlessly unbuckle his belt. My heart leaped into my throat, and I shot to my feet, the wooden chair scraping harshly against the tile floor. Julian just watched me, his eyes perfectly still, his voice now laced with ice as he told me I could leave. The exhaustion on his face was plain to see. I knew I couldn't just walk out. Thinking of him rushing back from London, a pang of concern hit me. I urged him to go home and rest, adding quickly that he could come to my place. I switched on the light and handed Julian a pair of spare slippers, assuring him they were new. He gave a curt nod, his eyes scanning the apartment before asking where the bathroom was. I led him there, pointing out the various toiletries. I told him one of the body washes was lemon-scented, asking if that was the kind he used. There was no reply from behind me. When I turned, a sudden force slammed me against the wall. My hands twisted behind my back. I cried out his name, my voice trembling. He didn't answer. The next second, he turned on the shower, and a spray of cold water drenched me. The shock made me shiver uncontrollably. My reaction seemed to please him. He let out a low laugh, his breath fanning across my ear like a feather. He murmured that he'd wanted to do this ever since he saw me in that outfit, and that I was just as shy as he'd imagined. He pinned my wrists with one hand, his knee pressing firmly between my legs. I let out a muffled grunt, and he pressed harder, his voice turning husky as he asked if I was scared. I nodded frantically, my voice weak as I told him I was. His own voice was laced with a chilling fury as he asked if I was so scared. Then why did I dare to mess around behind his back? The pressure of his grip lessened slightly. Sensing the opening, I struggled free and turned, keeping my head down as I tried to walk out, telling him to take a shower while I left. He grabbed my wrist, effortlessly pulling me back. His eyes raked over my trembling body, his expression placid as he said we needed to settle our accounts first. He kneaded my wrist, repeating my words back to me. We're not a good fit. Let's just end it here. He paused, letting out a soft, sharp sound that was almost a laugh. And you pursued Ava. What, you can drug me, but after one day apart you suddenly turn straight. I lowered my eyes, unable to offer any defense. After a long silence, I mumbled again that we weren't a good fit. A fine, not a good fit, Leo. I regret it, Julian sighed. His fingers went to the buttons of his shirt, undoing them one by one. He said that he had been reluctant to force me into anything before, and all he got in return was let's just end it here. He mused that he should have just dragged me home and chained me to his bed the night he met me in that bar. He tied my hands with his belt, his expression tender, his eyes like pools of spring water. He said it was time I learned what kind of man he really was. My throat was raw. I realized my hands were now bound to the headboard, the leather belt replaced with soft silk. No, it was two handkerchiefs knotted together. Both had a small, embroidered koi fish in the corner. They were the two I had given him. He had recognized me the second time I offered him one. All this time, he wasn't calling me Leo. He was calling me Koi. A cool sensation spread across my wrists. He must have applied some ointment. The familiar layout of the room came into focus, and for the first time, a sense of confusion washed over me. Was it possible Julian's feelings for me weren't just a game? And how long did he plan on keeping me here? The bedroom door opened, and he walked in with a bowl of congee. He noted that I was awake and sat on the edge of the bed, testing the temperature of the food before offering me a spoonful. I turned my head away, my expression earnest as I begged him to let me go, insisting again that we weren't compatible. Julian's hand paused. He set the spoon down, and his face slowly hardened. He stared at my scabbed lips and asked, his voice devoid of emotion, in what way we weren't compatible. Honestly, I couldn't name a single reason. In the first few days of our relationship, I was still living in my own place, and it didn't feel real. The system hadn't sent me back for failing the mission, so I could only continue playing the part of the Langdang Gongzer, hanging out with Jax and the others at nightclubs. It was during one of those nights, after Jax had opened a bottle of spiritus, that he'd suddenly asked if I'd been getting close with that Vance guy lately. He had dyed his hair a more aggressive shade of red, and his narrowed eyes held a new, hard edge. He'd only ever been half convinced by my explanation for stopping him that night, and he must have heard some new rumors. I hesitated. Seeing this, Jax shoved a full glass into my hand, telling me that if it wasn't true, I should just deny it, and he'd believe me. But if it was true, his voice dropped, the smile fading into contempt. Then I had to down the entire drink. So that's what this was about. After several mixed drinks, another full glass of straight spirits would put me out for the count. When I didn't drink, he pressed, asking if I was scared. The others, who had been laughing with their dates, quietly closed in around us. I put the glass down, making one last attempt to reason with him, reminding him that the girl was Julian's sister, and he hadn't stolen anyone from him. With a crash, Jax smashed his bottle on the floor. A shard of glass sliced my chin. He grabbed my collar, shoving me back against the sofa, and snarled, asking if I was with him or not. My head was already buzzing, and now it felt like it was about to split open. I sighed, clenched my fist, and swung. Jax, his eyes bloodshot with rage, shrieked that I had hit him for an outsider and wrapped his hands around my neck. One of his friends shoved him aside, and then fists started raining down on me. I don't know how many punches I took or threw. I just remember the door bursting open and a tall figure rushing in, scooping me up. Amidst the muffled grunts and chaos, blood began to trickle from the lips that had always been so gentle against my hair. When I thought about my time with Julian, the first thing that came to mind wasn't him smiling and calling me his baby, or holding me to warm my feet. It was the jarring, shocking splash of red in my chaotic field of vision. A red that haunted my dreams, but strangely, it wasn't accompanied by fear. It brought a sense of security. So much so that I had started to wonder what it would be like to stay at the source of that safety. But I didn't belong to this world. I wasn't here for Julian. No matter how the mission ended, the system would send me back. Julian's voice cut through my thoughts, asking if the blanket was comfortable. Reality and memory blurred for a moment, and I replied that it was. He let out a cold laugh, gripping my chin and pulling me close. He asked if I planned to spend the rest of my life with this blanket. Of course not. So, he said flatly I was never to mention compatibility to him again. He would punish me every time he heard it. I weakly protested that it was gangster logic, that the two things weren't the same. A faint smile touched his lips, but his eyes were humorless. As my panic rose, he leaned down, his cool fingertips tracing a line down my shirt, stopping over my heart. He looked at me and said he really wanted to cut open my chest to see if he was in there at all. His gaze was so calm that I couldn't tell if he was serious. A chill ran down my spine, and I softened my voice, calling his name. I told him I needed to use the bathroom. Evasion was cowardly, but it worked. Julian's brow relaxed, and he leaned down to kiss the tip of my nose, asking what I was supposed to call him. The memory of his raspy whispers from the night before, the nonsensical questions and answers he'd forced from me, flooded my mind. My face flushed and I softly answered, "Honey." He chuckled, praising me for being good and placing a loving kiss on my forehead. His voice was deep and gentle as he told me he would carry me there. I thought he would just put me down at the door. It was only when one of his hands cupped my rear and the other moved downward that I understood. I shook my head, trying to squirm away. This was absolutely not happening. He sighed, his voice tinged with sadness, saying that I was starting to reject him when I had been so well behaved before. Then he corrected himself, adding that I hadn't always been good. Just as he seemed about to rehash old grievances, I gave up and buried my face in his chest, shutting my eyes like a man facing a firing squad and yelling for him to just do it. To my surprise, he let me go, laughing with amusement. He said he was just helping me with my zipper and asked what I was closing my eyes for. He glanced down, an eyebrow raised in a teasing, suggestive manner, and wondered if I needed his help with that too. My face burned. From that day on, Julian never went back to the office, working from my apartment instead. He insisted on doing everything for me, feeding me my meals, helping me dress. I couldn't out-argue him. As for physical resistance, I glanced at the slim chain on my ankle, thought about Julian's physique, and slumped back onto the bed in defeat. All my electronic devices were monitored. Any attempt to contact the outside world would trigger an immediate alert. There was nothing to do but submit to my comfortable imprisonment. I turned on the tablet and picked a horror movie. As the creepy music swelled, the protagonist crept into a basement. Suddenly, her eyes widened in a silent scream. A body pressed against my back from behind, and I froze. Julian murmured, asking if I was scared, as he adjusted himself behind me. His warm body a comforting presence. He rested his head on my shoulder. He smelled of my rose and lychee body wash, a soft, gentle scent in the dark room. Before I could speak, something bloody and mangled jumped onto the screen. I yelped and buried my face in his chest, my voice trembling as I asked if it was over. He couldn't help but laugh, patting my back and telling me it wasn't. After a moment, I asked again. He leaned close, his voice a barely audible whisper, telling me that it was crawling onto the woman's back now. I instinctively tightened my grip on his waist. It was only when his body started shaking with suppressed laughter that I realized I'd been had. I shoved him away and kicked the tablet to the foot of the bed in a fit of pique, protesting that I hadn't been that scared. He was still chuckling as he pulled me back into his arms, agreeing that it was his fault. He hadn't laughed like that since he'd returned from London. I rested my face on his arm, lost in thought. Warning: you have deviated from the primary mission. Decoupling from system will initiate in 24 hours. Honey, I gasped, sitting bolt upright. I looked at Julian pleadingly. I'm so bored at home. Can I please go out for a walk? I have to go out and pursue Ava or else I'll have to leave you forever. Julian looked up from the tablet, his gaze cool. You still have energy? I forced a smile. But I still don't know about Ava. I wanted to ask where she was, if she'd confessed to Carter again. But at the mention of her name, The faint smile on Julian's face vanished. He closed the tablet and looked me over, as if assessing me, before repeating flatly, "You still have energy?" When his hand moved toward his collar, I yelped that I had none at all, and collapsed back onto the bed, on the verge of tears. How was I supposed to get out, find Ava, and continue the pursuit all in one day? What about Carter? I tried a different tactic. What do you think of him? Julian adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses and asked with a smile if I'd changed tastes again. He grabbed my ankle and started to pull it toward him. Just as he was about to bend my leg, I shouted that I wanted him to be my brother-in-law. Julian propped himself up on his elbows above me, not seeming to pay much attention to my words. "What sister do you have?" he asked. I looked away, uncomfortable, and muttered that his sister was my sister. Julian's body went still. He looked up, his eyes flickering with an unreadable emotion that made my forced composure crumble. Finally, he rolled off me. He lit a cigarette with a flick of his wrist and confirmed in a low voice, "So you're not trying to be with her?" When was I ever trying to be with Ava? I was confused, my brain sluggish from days of confinement. I answered honestly that I never wanted to be with her, I just had to pursue her. "Ha!" Julian exhaled a cloud of smoke, leaning over me and blowing it gently in my face. His smile was dangerously beautiful. He murmured that first I drugged him, then I wanted to break up, then I pursued his sister but didn't want to be with her. Seeing me cough, he casually extinguished the cigarette and looked down at me, telling me to explain. "A fortune teller told me I have to pursue Ava." I blurted out, the lie feeling flimsy even to my own ears. I was always supposed to pursue her. My heartbeat started to even out. I tentatively moved closer to Julian. When he didn't pull away, I buried my face in his neck, inhaling his faint scent, and continued my half-true fabrication. "If Ava is single, I have to keep pursuing her, or something terrible will happen." Julian was silent, but his hand began to idly stroke my jaw. I blushed and wrapped my arms around his neck. "But you're too handsome, honey. The moment I see you, I can't move." That part wasn't entirely a lie. Julian was breathtakingly handsome, a perfect blend of refined gentleman and sophisticated degenerate that hit every one of my preferences. It was why I had been able to spot him in a crowd. But to stay with him, I had to finish this mission first. Julian took out his phone and dialed a number. When the call connected, he let out a cold laugh, his voice laced with threat. "What the hell are you still hesitating for, you idiot? My boyfriend is about to marry your girlfriend if you don't get your act together." I stared at him, dumbfounded, as he hung up and then stroked my lips. He gave me two choices, his voice low and raspy. "Either you let me keep you locked up for the rest of your life, or..." His long fingers touched my throat, then began to trace a slow, deliberate path downward. "I choose the second one," I said without a moment's hesitation. Julian withdrew his hand and gently brushed my hair from my forehead. "In that case," he murmured, his kiss landing on my brow, soft and lingering. "Let's go now." I watched, bewildered, as he knelt on one knee to put my shoes and socks on for me. "Go? Go where?" Julian looked up, the corners of his eyes lifting in a faint smile. "To get married abroad." Wait, so the key to completing the mission had been right in front of me all along. The system had glitched. Julian had dragged me on a flight to Ireland where we were legally married. By the time we exchanged rings, the 24-hour deadline had clearly passed. I had just started to breathe a sigh of relief when Ava, the original heroine, disappeared. She vanished without a word to anyone right after our wedding ceremony. Carter was the first to notice. He came over with a small cake, saying the maid of honor had been on her feet all day and hadn't eaten, and asked if we'd seen her. Julian and I had been the center of attention, so we hadn't noticed. After several unanswered calls, the lines of Carter's mouth tightened. Once he confirmed he was the only one who had been blocked, a bitter smile touched his lips. He clapped Julian on the shoulder and said with forced casualness, "Looks like I'll be chasing her for a while longer. Congratulations, you two. I have to go." As we watched his tall figure disappear, I turned to Julian worriedly and asked what we should do. He just bent his head and peppered my face with soft kisses, his voice gentle as he told me they were adults and could play their own games. Today, he said, my attention should be on my husband. Despite his words, I spent the next several weeks anxiously asking for updates on Ava, terrified the system would deem my mission a failure and either erase me or send me back. If I just vanished, Julian would go insane. He may have played the villain, but I couldn't lie to myself and say I hadn't found a strange sort of pleasure in our dynamic. My old friends used to say I was cheerful and easygoing. They didn't know it was because I never had anyone watching my back. Growing up in foster care, I learned to smile at everyone, to always take a step back. I was the grateful foster son, the top graduate, the team lead. But now I was just a young man with his partner. My husband reminds me to wear a jacket, takes me on drives to quiet towns on rainy days, and rests his head in the crook of my neck to recharge. He gets annoyed when I sleep in, but a single kiss or a bit of cuddling is usually enough to placate him. Don't ask how a grown man becomes so good at acting cute. You'll understand when you have a husband of your own. My brother has always been my safe harbor. No matter how loudly the two of them fought outside, as long as I was in my brother's room, sitting beside him, I could focus on my homework. They signed the papers soon enough. When my mother took the doll from my arms and asked if I wanted to go to London with her, I ran behind my brother and said with all the seriousness I could muster, "I'm staying with him." It was the right choice. Even with our father's endless affairs and illegitimate children, none of that ugliness ever reached me. I grew up safely under my brother's protection. But every time I saw him smile politely while turning down yet another girl, I always wondered what kind of person he could possibly like. What kind of person could break through those invisible walls and gently envelop that beautiful but cold heart? My brother was always smiling, always gentle, but he left a trail of broken hearts. He moved through the world with an effortless grace, disdaining to love anyone. So when the young man appeared before me with a bouquet of white roses, I was genuinely surprised. He was, without a doubt, clean and gentle, like a mountain spring. So clear that once you noticed him, you couldn't help but want to know more. It was certainly interesting. My brother had just flown to London to come out to our closest relatives, and the very next day, his boyfriend shows up to pursue me. I am very good at feigning innocence. I put on my most unguarded expression and told him we should go to a nearby bar to talk. My brother always said that in the Vance family, there were those who were eliminated, but there were no fools. I skillfully ordered drinks and watched him. He had better be worthy of my brother's affection. To my surprise, even when I was drunk and slumped against him, he never made a move. He was just gentle, wiping my tears and worrying about me drinking with strangers. His eyes held nothing but a mild kindness, as if there was truly no ulterior motive to him pursuing both of us. I think I was beginning to understand why my brother liked him.